Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so last week we started going into zakat of money and we started speaking about money and I shared some things to look at and to read about. And so we want to basically break down the concept of money. I'm going to do a whiteboard. I don't know if it actually records or not. So inshallah it records. What can I do? Um, how do I do this? So whiteboard. Um, okay. Okay. So basically what we have is we have commodities. And I don't know in finance or in economics do we include this or not, but I'm going to put utilities as well, right? Services. Okay. So these are things that have innate use, i.e., therefore innate worth, value. Okay. So a piece of metal has innate use, has innate value, innate worth. A karate class for kids has innate value. A somebody
Jake, I think these are called capital goods
capital goods.
because
Okay.
there's a value associated with them versus a public good like the air quality.
Okay. But can we not call
So
them
I think
commodities?
no, I guess we can. I'm not an economist, but
So
I think
I don't know. So I'm going to call it commodity for now. I don't know what the actual term
oh,
is, but I'll do that for
you-
now, right?
you're the boss, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, so I'm going to call it these things for now, okay? Now, so basically what happens then is Islam comes along and does two things. Number one says which of these commodities slash services, somebody just on the board, I can see somebody writing something on the board. If somebody could not do that. I don't know, I can't see who's doing it, but there's some lines on the board. If you could just delete that, please. So which of these commodities slash services uh, are recognized by the Sharia? Okay. And then which ones aren't? Okay. And then which ones are zakatable? Okay. So when we talk about commodities, utilities, services, then we also have to come along and talk about currency. Okay. And so we began last week talking about currency, but what is the point of currency? What is the basic concept? Why would you have currency?
To exchange goods.
Good, right? So the goal of it is to facilitate, right? Facilitate the exchange of goods. Now, there's other ways you can do things. So obviously you could barter, right, with that currency, and you could also um, you could also, sorry, just move my cat. Um, I guess there's other ways you could do things, but it's pretty difficult, right? When I'm exchanging leather for arms, when I'm exchanging rice for wheat, when exchanging wheat for services, I will, it's quite a lot of complex things. I'll give you this much wheat for you to take me by horse to this place. It's quite complex. It's not very easy. Okay, so Islam comes along, and there is already a currency in place. There's two currencies in place. Okay, they are dinars and dirhams. But where are these from in reality? The word dirham, is that actually Arabic? Or the word dinar, is that actually Arabic?
I was gonna say it's Farsi.
They are Latin and Greek. So the
Oh,
drachm, right? The drachm becomes the dirham, and the dinar becomes the dinar, right? So these are existing things that humans are using. They're using gold and silver. So it comes along and says there's gold and silver. Okay. And gold and silver, as we know, they are not reactive elements, so they don't rust, etc. They don't decay. Um, um, and they've been used by many, many people throughout the world to trade things, right? Other peoples like that believe the Incas, they use cacao, I think, is that true? Maybe, or certain people, I know they use different things. Um, but what is so there's two things basically about these things is they do actually have value, right? They have value, right? So they have, and I'm gonna say they have innate value. Is it really true they have innate value? But I mean, they do have innate value, right? In that, so you could say, well, what's the point of having a ton of gold when there's no wheat to buy and we're all gonna die? Say, well, what's the point of having tons of wheat when you don't have any water, right? So wheat is very useful when it's in excess, and I don't need it if I don't have any water, or water is pointless if I don't have any wheat, right? So, but it does have innate value, okay? Um, it has innate value, but it is not. So here's another question then: is gold and silver, does it have is there a fixed amount of gold and silver in the world? No. No, there isn't. So there's no fixed number. Okay. So this is important because I want to compare gold and silver to fiat currency. Okay. So now we come along. Okay, you at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you used to be for example, a sorcerer. Okay, your job and your dad, you used to be a magician. You used to do future fortune telling as a service, and you used to get paid for that. Along comes the Prophet ﷺ and says you can't do that. Okay, so the commodity, the service that you used to provide to people and used to get gold and silver for is no longer recognized. Right? You used to be a thief. You can't get paid to be a thief, right? You used to rely on your tribe attacking other tribes. That's not a way of doing that. Okay? And so the Sharia comes along and says these services that you did don't count, and certain things that you sold, for example, in the Shafi school, for example, you used to sell dogs. You can't sell dogs, not the thing. You used to sell alcohol. You can't sell alcohol. You used to sell idols. You can't sell idols. You used to sell blood. You can't sell blood. Right? You used to sell urine. You can't sell urine. You used to sell things that weren't deliverable. For example, you used to do things like, I will buy your stud's second generation offspring. So this stud or this mare, when her offspring gives birth, I'm buying that now. You used to sell things that were undeliverable, okay? And you can't do that. So the Sharia came along and put certain standards, okay? Put certain standards. So things that were undeliverable, right? Unknown, um, not moral, not clean, okay? You can't do these things, right? These things are banned, right? These are basically banned. These are not considered services, so immoral services. right? Or not clean things, or unknown things, or undeliverable. In reality, this is one of the same things. So the use of it, right? So when I say that something is undeliverable, meaning I couldn't deliver the wheat to you, or I don't know if I can deliver the wheat to you, or I don't know how much it's going to come to you, or when it's going to come. This is all to do with the use, to do with the value. Okay? So now I come along, and in reality, the Sharia treated commodities and currency in two different ways, and put more problems with more stipulations with currency than commodities. Now, why is that the case? What is the goal of a commodity? Or what is the goal of the currency?
Sheikh, is it because they wanted to make sure that trading was done fairly?
Possibly, but when I say gold and silver have innate value, and wheat and water and bricks have innate value, do they have the same? Its relationship to value, is it the same kind of thing?
No, because wheat is perishable.
Okay, one's perishable, so that's to do with finite nature of things perishable. But when you say, for example, its utility, the use of wheat or bricks or water or even like a car, is it the same as gold and silver? No, not really,
No.
right? So gold and silver, yes, they do have innate value. Yes, it is a piece of gold. Okay, you can make jewelry out of it. That's basically its use, and it has certain, other values, uses as well. But basically, but it's not the same. So the Sharia comes along and says gold and silver is currency. The point of currency is to facilitate the exchange of commodities and services. That's the point, right? I want you to, so that's the goal of it. So the Sharia comes along and puts certain stipulations on currencies that don't apply to commodities. So we clearly see in the Sharia there's a distinction between currency and commodity. Okay, they're not the same thing. Okay, they're treated in different ways. And the issue with currency is the true value is not really there until you change it to a commodity. So what do I mean by that? I have a house, I sell it for cash, I use the cash and I build two houses that were bigger than the first house, right? So how did the real value of the currency is already shown when it becomes realized? Okay, and we're going to see that when we talk about buying and selling things, right? You buy something, it has a value, you sell it, and then you buy something else, and you actually have more now because you have something that the actual value, the tangible value is there. Okay, so it's quite clear, okay, that the Sharia made this distinction between currency, okay, and commodity. Why? Because the benefit, the real raw value of goods and services is much more than currency. Albeit, and this is very important, albeit the currency that the Sharia or that Revelation first interacted with also actually had innate value and had a fixed and was not fixed in number. Must change here. Not fixed number. Meaning you can keep mining gold and silver, right? So that is the picture that we are now. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ forbade debt for debt. So if you think now there's commodity, a brick, a horse, a tent, food, water, a service. I will carry this water up the hill for you. I will teach your kids. I will teach you a science. I will whatever. So it's very tangible. Then you have the thing that is used, the gold and silver, these things that are used to exchange that. And then you have something which is further, which is a debt, right? A debt is has value, right? I owe you a service or I owe you a currency, right? But it's a step further away. In its relationship to raw value, a debt is very flimsy. So the Prophet ﷺ forbade selling debts for debts. You can't do that. Why? Because if currency is flimsy, what about a debt for a debt? Okay, and there's all sorts of rules to do with debts. So what is the point I'm trying to get to? When we fast forward to today and we talk about two things, one is fiat currency and the other is cryptocurrency. Okay? We have two things that are fundamentally un-Islamic. I'm not saying that they're haram. I'm not giving a fatwa. But I'm saying they're problematic. Just like I said, debt was problematic. Debt is a problem because its relationship to raw value is very flimsy. Therefore, there's more rules that apply to it. Okay? So when you go fast forward and you go to fiat currency. So what is fiat currency? Obviously, it's there to facilitate exchange, same idea. Does it have innate value?
No.
No innate value. Right. So basically, put simply, you know, the more bombs that the country has that created that made up that created that what's it called that fake currency, the more their money is. That's a gross oversimplification, right? But it's things like that. It's basically a lie that we all agree on, right? So gold and silver is not a lie that we all agree on. If you don't want jewelry, that's fine. So I guess you don't want gold and silver, but it does have innate value. Yes, it is less direct innate value than other things, but it does have innate value. Okay? Whereas fiat currency does not have innate value. We are not looking at the value of the piece of paper as paper, or as it's the chemical potential energy that you could get from that it stores by that could be burned. That's not its value, right? So a dollar is only worth something because I believe it's worth something and you believe it's worth something. But if I don't believe it and you don't believe it, it doesn't have any value. Okay? So in contrast, yes, it's there to facilitate exchange. Yes. No innate value. Okay? So if currency was a problem because it's undeliverable, because so things that are problems like that if you read that hadith that I shared, right, where the Prophet ﷺ said was talking about a forward sale where I pay you in cash, where I pay you in cash for the crops that will be harvested in 3 months. He said, so then the Prophet ﷺ explained why I'm forbidding you from doing this. He didn't say it's haram. He explained why can you not buy crops until the signs of ripeness are apparent. He says, because it's a commodity. Its value is in not what it is now, is in what it will be in 3 months. And I can't guarantee the deliverability of these crops in 3 months. I don't know what's going to happen. So yes, it's clean, it's moral, but it's unknown or undeliverable. So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ said, how could you take the money of your brother? Meaning he paid for something because he wants a value, and that value is unknown, right? So you can't do that. You can't do that. So now when you come to deliverability, at least, okay, you say, fine, well, what about buying gold? I don't know what I could do with this gold. Well, at least you have something. When I exchanged potatoes for gold, right, both of us are leaving with something that has innate value, right? And both of us in our hands, we have the keys to value, to something worth, something that has use, that has benefit. The issue then with fiat currency then is it has no innate value. So I'm leaving with a lie, right? So you gave me your house, I gave you a high five, and I said this high five. If you take if you now go and give high five to that guy over there, he values high fives, by the way. So if you give him the same high five that I gave you, he will give you two houses, right? So you come to me, and I gave you something that is kind of pointless. It's meaningless. If he believes it and you value it, it's fine, but it's kind of silly. So it's a joke. It's not. It's a dream. You know. It's just a dream. It's not real. Okay. Does it have? Does it have a fixed number? Is there a fixed number of dollars in the world that can ever exist?
Yes.
Really? So there's limit. Like you can't possibly have more than $8 trillion. Like when you get to $8 trillion, that's it.
Oh, you mean a person?
No, not a person. I'm talking about is there a limited amount of dollars that could be in the world?
Yes.
There
Yes,
is.
it's controlled by the US Treasury.
Okay, but could they increase it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They do it
Exactly.
all the time.
Exactly. So there's no fixed number. So is it like gold and silver in that it's no fixed number? Yes. Okay. But is gold and silver mining the same as a government arbitrarily increasing the number of the amount of dollars in the world, printing money?
No.
It's not. So if there's a problem, right, the problem is way more in fiat currency, right? So in fiat currency is seriously problematic, okay? Seriously problematic. We add to this problem interest, which now takes the whole thing onto another level, right? It's hugely problematic, right? That's why we have basically wars in the world. That's basically what the situation is, right? There's this book that I'm reading, or trying to read. It's too difficult for me in reality, by Tariq al-Diwani, and so he's writing a book. He's a modern scholar on the problem of interest, and so he said, he said that. Oh, I shared it, right? I shared the thing typed when I shared it on so he was talking about some kind of charity event where they saved money for some people, right? And so, they managed to raise $50 million or no, 50 million pounds, but then like the next day, that money came back to the Western country because the Western countries because that country in Africa, that's the amount of money that they pay daily in interest anyway. So that's something else. That's so slightly other issue. But this issue of no innate value, and hence, right, this is in reality connected, right? So when you have a currency that is gold itself, or backed by gold, right, then it is limited. You can only issue a piece of paper saying I owe you this much money because you have that much money, right? Whereas this, you can create more money than exists, okay? So therefore, you can literally take money away from me, right? So if I have $1 and I have the only dollar in the whole world, then I own everything. Suddenly, you printed another dollar. You have now taken half of what I own because you have the purchasing power now to buy half of that world. So I used to own everything, and now I own half of it. Right? When I have a house in California that is worth $1 million, and then so you suddenly print more money, you are now devaluing my house, right? You're now taking now it's easier to buy that than it was before. So the money is actually worth less, right? Which is problematic. Can that happen with gold and silver? It can. Is it as aggressive and as chaotic? No. But as a case in point, right? Because I don't want to sound overly romantic, okay? I don't like these things that sound overly romantic, right? At the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was a 1 to 10 ratio of gold and silver, right? So if you look in zakat, you pay zakat on 20 dinars of gold or 200 dirhams of silver. Okay, that's how it works. 20 was the same as 200. It was 1 to 10. That is not the same today at all. So today, if you look at the zakat standards, you're going to have these two different numbers that are really different. If you pay by the zakat amount on silver, it's like $600. But if it's in the dirham standard, it's like $5,000. So there's a huge difference. Why is that the case? Because there is not a fixed number. It wasn't that the Prophet came into a world where there was a fixed amount of gold and silver. Rather, what happened is since then, um, much more silver has been found, so it's actually decreased in value. Okay, so I want to just be frank about that. So, but is it as aggressive and flimsy as fiat currency? No, it's not. Okay, but why then have modern scholars accepted fiat currency? Because it is universally universally accepted. Okay? Um, so why is it the fuqaha have accepted it? And initially they had serious problems with it, right? Is it said it is universally accepted, meaning the dollar. Yes, I'm sure there's some countries in the world that would not accept the dollar, right? If you turn up to that country, you say we don't recognize the dollar. We don't recognize the Israeli shekel, for example. You go into that country, say, yeah, I want to, we don't recognize it. That's not considered money to us. But that's just that country, right? But the Israeli shekel, the US dollar, right? The Australian dollar, the pound, most currencies, these are universally accepted. So they are current, meaning it is not just relative. It's not just relative, right? So, but that's kind of one of the reasons. Why else do you think the fuqaha will be forced to accept this situation in face of all the problems with fiat currency? Why would they be forced to accept it?
It would be hard without it.
Yeah, that's just being just like, hey, this is reality, right? So that's like our scholars in Shafi fiqh. They said, for example, can a fasiq, can somebody who is irreligious and openly irreligious and known to be irreligious, can he marry off his daughter in marriage? Like, can he be a guardian? They said no. So they said, well, come on, guys, this is the world that we live in. Okay, so they said, this is the world we live in, guys. What do you want to do about it? Like your fiqh basically doesn't apply. That's what they said. This is 900 years ago. They said there are whole communities of people where people don't pray. That's just a reality. So now what are you going to try and say that there's no marriage? Like, how's that work? So our fuqaha, they're not living in, what's the phrase, ivory towers, right? It's like, this is reality. This is what's happening, right? So they're forced to do certain things. Our fuqaha as well said in the past that if you die with nobody to inherit from you, then your inheritance goes to the state. But our scholars from a long time ago, not modern year period, long time ago, they said, no way, we're not going to give our money to the state. They're crazy, right? Meaning it's become a norm for almost a millennium that the rulers have been corrupt and bad. So no, you should not give your money to them, right? You shouldn't do that. You should give it to follow another position about giving to more distant relatives, etc. Okay, so we have to understand that our ulama, they're balancing two things: an ideal situation where we would look at currency and say, this has no innate value. This has innate value. This has innate value, but not the same way that a commodity does, right? And this is weak. So if this is weak, this is super weak. So no, we shouldn't accept it, right? We should not accept it. Given the paradigm of the Sharia, we shouldn't accept it, A. Given the danger they can have to economies, we shouldn't accept it. But given that it's universally accepted, yes, A. And then B, we don't have a choice, Habibi, right? You don't have a choice. There is no like this is how the world works now. Okay? The people have accepted it. Okay? But we have to understand, we have to see it as it is. Like that's not ideal, right? So yeah, you've all heard me talk about loose marriages, right? You've heard me talk about the non-ideal marriage that sometimes you're forced into,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So you're like, oh, Sheikh Farid promotes temporary marriages. I didn't say that. Sheikh Farid promotes this. I don't say that. I'm saying look at the situation where people are in. Here is, I talk about, reiterate what I mentioned by that. Like you say, here's a situation where I've been burnt twice. I don't want to be in a relationship. I can't live with somebody. I don't want to do that. Okay. And you say, well, what do you want to do then? Say, well, I just want to be in a kind of distant relationship where like, you know, I'm just married, but we don't live together and there's no commitment and there's no this, no this, no this. Is that Islamic? No, it's not. Is that the reality for many Muslims? Yes, it is. And is that a better solution than dating, etc.? Yes, it is. Okay. So the same kind of discussion. We're walking on territory we don't want to be in. We don't like the situation. It's awkward. It's off. But we don't have a choice. But at least fiat currency, the dollar, is universally accepted. So now we take another step, which is to Bitcoin. So is there a fixed number of Bitcoins?
No.
Y- I,
You tell me. No, so I've heard yes and I've heard no.
I
Go
I
ahead.
believe there's like a fixed amount that can be
As
mined.
far as I know, there's a fixed amount. In which case, that's a pro for Bitcoin. Okay, that's a pro for Bitcoin. What else? So how else is Bitcoin in terms of its politics dangerous for a country, but good for the good for the person who doesn't want to be controlled by the state? How is it more liberating? Who is it controlled by?
It's decentralized, so
It's
it's not
decentralized.
controlled.
That's good because it's not the same as the dollar. It is not the same as a certain power, the French, the Swiss franc or whatever. It's not representative of this person's power or economic power. It's decentralized, which is good. Why is that bad? In terms of being universally accepted, why is that bad? Lack of security, exactly. Undeliverability, right? So I'm looking at Bitcoin from the lens of utilities and commodities. How many steps away is it from food in my mouth, from the car that I want to buy? Now, when I say food in my mouth, I don't mean necessities. I'm talking about actual things. I want a car, I want a house, I want a phone, I want things, I want a service, I want an app that does something for me, right? So Bitcoin then is good because it is more secure in that it's a fixed amount, but it's good because decentralized, and it's bad because it's less deliverable. So if you think about gold, gold doesn't need to be centralized because it has innate value. Okay? So the issue then with Bitcoins and other cryptocurrency is going to look at it from this point of view. How deliverable, meaning to what its connection to services and commodities, how close is it? How close is it? Is it the same as gold and silver or is it not? Right? Same thing with with crypto with fiat currency, right? And so they are problematic. So let's speak theoretically. Could you come along then? So you say, well, Fareed, are you telling me that cryptocurrency and currency as not money? Say, arguably, yeah. Arguably, it is not money. A dollar is not mal, right? And I want you just interesting thing, right? Listen to this hadith. Ya Rasulullah, halakatil amwal, right? There was no rain, so the people said, Ya Rasulullah, halakatil amwal. What did they mean by mal? They meant cattle. Mal, money, meant cattle. That's what they meant. So for them, that's it. Look at how they're working. That when they say mal, they're talking about something that's very, very tangible and very solid, right? It's very tangible and very solid. When you move to gold and silver, it's a bit flimsy, but it's real, right? We can use gold and silver in different places. You can smuggle, even if I'm at war with your country, even if I don't agree with you, gold and silver is useful. Gangster walks around with gold and silver, right? For a reason, because it has innate value, right? So yes, you might find situations in history where people didn't value it at certain places, sometimes, but in general, it has for a long time. It does have universal value. You walk into a country with gold bullion, right? Number one, they're not going to let you walk in with a suitcase full of gold bullion, are they? Because they know it has value, right? And there's rules how countries work with these things, right? As opposed to currencies, what if the currency fails, right? So then, going back to that hadith, the Prophet said, what would you do then if it fails, the crop fails, right? So gold and silver don't fail, but fiat currency fails. Cryptocurrency, it can fail, right? So you might some people might like there was some advice what they said put 2% of your portfolio into cryptocurrency. Would you put all of your portfolio into cryptocurrency? No, Habibi, right? Okay, well I wouldn't put all my portfolio into building either. Okay, that's true. So investments might fail. That's true, right? I mean that's wealth. You built a house, right? You bought 10% of Amazon. That's a service, right? So that you did buy something and that could fail. It's true, right? Any investment could fail, but there's very different when it's just a hype, right? It's not real. And so is it arguable that fiat currency is not currency? 100%. Is it arguable then that Bitcoin and more so less popular things, right? And as far as I know, with Ethereum, for example, Ethereum does not have a fixed number. And then here's a question, could I change that? So I come along and say, oh, Bitcoin has a fixed number. Well, we change that now, right? And it's decentralized. How does it all work? It's tricky, right? It's tricky. So all I'm trying to say is this is the discussion. And the Sharia is trying to push us towards commodities and secure things so that you actually get something. I want the bread that I paid for. I want the service that I paid for. Is it deliverable? How do you feel towards me when you paid for something and you didn't get it? How do you feel when yes, things go wrong. I bought a horse and it died. It happens, right? It happens. But deliverability and money, this is what the Sharia is trying to push us towards. And not to very flimsy things that I don't know what's going on, right? Right? When I don't know what's going on, it's very, very flimsy. Okay, so where should we be working in? Let's put the fiqh aside. In terms of a society, in terms of Muslims, we should be working towards commodity-backed currencies. That's what we should be doing. Gold-backed things, right? In America, if the discussion comes up, if we have any role in society, if we do it like, let's go back to the pre-Nixon stage, as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, when the dollar was backed by gold, right? Right? Let's go back to that. Let's bring stability, right? We with Trump right now. Let's make America great again. Part of making America great again and achieving Islamic goals is that people should have actual money. You sold your house, which is a commodity, for a number. This number actually represents pieces of gold in Fort Knox that I can go and get. It's mine. They can steal it from me. That's sure. That's true. People can steal gold. People can steal your house. People can steal it, kill your cattle. That's true. You can take everything I have from me. That's true. But at least in principle, it is tangible commodities and services as opposed to numbers, right? Does that make sense? That makes sense? Okay, great. So now
Yes,
moving
sir.
on practically, you have investments you have cash, meaning you have pounds, euros, dollars, and you save it for a year, pay zakat. Are you obliged to pay zakat? It's arguable that you're not, but it's arguable that you are, and so you should be very careful, right? Because if you don't say that money, it's also haram to trade in it, meaning you can't go to a shop and give somebody dollars. So if you want to follow the position that fiat currency is not money, follow it the whole way. You cannot pay somebody in dollars because that's not money. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Right? Do not consume each other's wealth in something that's worthless, batil. Right? So you provided a service. They provided a service for you. They let you go on an airplane. You got to give them pieces of gold. You got to give them a service. Say, hey, I'll cut your hair 200 times over the next 3 years. Something like that. I don't know. But if you're gonna deal in fiat currency, which all of us do, and you have a choice, then pay zakat on it. Right? Similarly, Bitcoin, it's either not money, in which case it is haram to trade in, can't buy it, can't sell it, and there's no zakat on it, or it is money, in which case it's halal to buy and sell, and we treat it as gold and silver, and it has to be immediate sale of it, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and you can buy with it, you can sell with it, you can pay people in Bitcoin. You're gonna have to pay zakat on it. You can't be halfway. Does that make sense?
Yes, sure.
Okay, but again, we should be working towards, right? So when we're looking at fiat, when we're looking at cryptocurrency, we're going to look to these things. They're different. Some of these things are like they're not even like some of them are totally different. Like when you get into this cryptocurrency world, some of these things are more like shares than something else. So a share then is over here. So when I say, oh, I sold my 0.5% share of this company, that means you're here. A share of a company is not currency. So yeah, you might feel you're changing numbers to numbers, but that's not really the case. What you did is you had a share of this company, meaning I own a fraction of their tools and things that they have, and I own a share of the money that comes in of the use of the services they provide. Okay, and then I sold my 0.5% share in some telecom company. Um, for something else, exchange it for something else, right? That's fine, right? There are conditions there because you could be selling debts, like you might have a debt from this company for that company. But the point is, it's going to be a bit more complex. But the point is, at least you're dealing in this world, right? And certain cryptocurrencies are like that, right? Where you have a share, it's more like a share of, it's a currency that represents a share of a service or a share of a commodity, right? And it's a very different kind of thing, as opposed to a currency does not represent a share of something, right? Currency, fiat currency specifically, is a lie that we all believe, but because so many people believe it, we don't have a choice except to use it, right? It's a bit like the third gender, right? You're at work and you have to call your boss it. It's like there isn't a third gender, but suddenly there is, right? And now all companies do that. And there's no way you can work without using this third gender, right? It's like, okay, right? But it's not ideal at all, okay? Khair. Everyone's happy and makes sense? Okay, let's go back to the book then, inshallah.
Sorry, sir.
Go ahead.
Um, I mean, how is it possible for us to move away from that? Oh, like from
So,
fiat currency?
for me and you, we're not involved in politics. No one's going to listen to you, right? But at least if you know a direction, right? You know in a direction where your country should be going in. You know, you know that the Sharia is going in that direction. Like Sharia wants this kind of thing. So at least you can work towards that. That's all. So as an individual, what am I supposed to do? You know, I remember my dad told me this. He said, "Free, tell them to pay you in sheep," and I thought it was a silly thing, right? And then I remember seeing in Jordan, the shepherd, right? The shepherd is walking down this valley with maybe 100 sheep, right? Each sheep is worth about $300. So he's walking down the street with how much? $300 times one. He's got a lot of money, right? And so let's imagine, for example, so in Jordan, right? In Jordan, right? Jordan, the Jordanian dinar is tied to the dollar. World War IV kicks off, or whatever it is now. He still has a sheep. He still has a sheep. What do you have? You have nothing, right? But he has sheep. So it makes sense, right? It does make sense. Land. This is a whole thing in England, people buying land, right? Having land, right? Is very important. Land. When in the Roman legion, when they used to retire, they would give them a plow and say, you have from Fajr or sun dawn to dusk to plow a square. You're going to use the plow. If you're greedy, you'll plan it too big and you won't finish it. And if you, right, but make a plan you're going to do a square of your land. We're going to give you land when you retire. Here is a piece of land. This is for you and for your children, a piece of land. That's money. Salary, do you know, who knows what the word salary comes from? What's the etymology of it? Sal, what does that mean in Spanish? Sal. Where's Badr? He's here. You have 4 Muhammads today? No, 3 Muhammads. Sal means salt. Salary is the word salt. Paying people in salt. Salt, if you don't have a fridge, how do you store meat? With salt. It's extremely important. Salt is very expensive, very important. Right? So you're paying people in a raw commodity that's actually worth something. Right? And so, it's just important to have these values. These are worldly lessons and these are Sharia lessons. And the two of them are tied together because the Sharia is hifd al-mal, by protecting the use, etc., that you have, right? And turning, you want to become wealthy, that's fine. Meaning turn the worth that you have. You have services and you have assets, turning them into more services and more assets. That's totally fine. And you do that through means of a currency. But the currency is not the thing that you work with. So when someone's in, for example, Forex exchange, right? We're talking about a world where it's all about turning flimsy into flimsy. It's in principle not within the goals of the Sharia, and it's not a strong system. It's not a strong system, right? Okay. So again, answering Muhammad's question, how can I do that? You can't okay, today you just can't do that. Well, maybe you can start buying gold. That's one thing, right? I know here in Malaysia, you can in Islamic banks and others, you can buy gold, and they can store gold for you. You know, you want to go and buy a couple $1,000s worth of gold, and you have gold bullion. It's useful, right? It is an investment long term, and it's not something bad. And that's one thing. But just that that this is your direction, and so when it comes times to vote, or when in anything that you have some say, or you're trying to push things in that direction, to a gold-backed, silver-backed, commodity-backed currency, right? Crude oil, right? Exchanging crude oil, and we can have a number, a currency that's based on every mil of milliliter of crude oil, or a liter of crude oil, or whatever it is, gallon of crude oil, or a quart of crude oil, or whatever it is. That is the thing that you're going to be exchanging. So then when you're doing a service for a service, right? You get into an Uber and you pay him. What you paid him is a number that represents a hard, tangible amount of crude oil that he can go and pick up tomorrow if he wants. It is registered in his account that he owns. He is owed X amount of crude oil. So then he goes and picks it up. I have this crude oil now. I have barrels of crude oil, right? As opposed to a number that is only worth something as long as that country exists. And if that country collapses or that economy collapses, it's worthless. Not to mention the whole problem of printing money, right? Not to mention the whole issue of printing money. Khair. Okay, so then it says, Zakat is obligatory on 2 types of money, gold and silver, right? And only by extension is it going to be anything else. It is obligatory if 5 conditions met a Muslim. Okay, we mentioned this last week. Even if you're not reached puberty, he's free, obviously, because he's not free, then he himself is money. Possess complete ownership, right? So this is like the mukatab we mentioned. The mukatab is a person buying their freedom, right? Somebody buying their freedom. The money's not theirs yet. So they're raising money and they're saving money in order to pay themselves off. If their owner cancels the mukataba contract, then the money that they have earned goes back to their owner. So it's kind of like in between, it's not complete ownership. They possess the minimal amount, which is about, somebody can Google it for me. What is the minimum, the nisab? I believe it's about $600, and for the silver standard, and like $5,000 in the gold standard. Right? So you can choose which one you go through. The better thing is to go with the silver and say, okay, I didn't have $5,000 for the whole year, but I did have $1,000 for the whole year. So therefore, that was the minimum I had for the whole year, in which case I pay zakat on that. If you did not have that minimum, right? Mashallah, you make $15,000 a month, mashallah, but you spend $15,000 a month. Or in the middle of the year, I bought a new car. In the middle of the year, I went on holiday. So then you went down below the minimum, right? Anybody manage to find it? What is the zakat minimum in the nisab in dollars for 2025? Nobody?
I'm saying for 87 grams, $10,000. That seems a bit high.
Yeah, so that's
Um,
that's the gold standard. But then so nisab, silver, USD. So 612 grams of how much is that then? That comes to 400, yeah. Hypothetical, about $500, right? So that means you had less than $400, less than $500, right? You don't pay zakat. So there was some point in the year. So again, even if you had $50,000 for half of that time, so you look at your balance, 50, 80, 40, 20, 10, $200, $100,000. So you look at the minimum for that whole year. Did you have at least $500 for the whole year? Yes. Okay, then zakat is due. Okay. If you didn't have that minimum, then zakat is not due. You want to give charity, that's fine. But zakat is not due in the Shafi school. Okay. Now in the Hanafi school, they're not interested in that. They're interested in when was the first time you had to pay zakat? I don't know. Okay, well, remember when your grandma passed away and you inherited that money? So yeah, okay. How much was that? Oh, $3,000. Okay, how old were you? 3. Okay, what date was that? I don't know. Okay, go back. That was the 18th, the 13th of Rabi' al-Thani, right? Okay, so now we're going to go year by year after that. So what the Hanafis do is they go year by year after that date, and they say, look at a year after that date. We're not interested in the middle time, but a year by year after that date, did you have zakat, the zakat amount? Yes. No. Yes. No. You go year by year, and you go back and you pay those dates. Okay. For the Hanafis, from the time you read, but the Hanafis it was also different to us. So the Hanafis, they look at it from point to point, from the first time you had to pay zakat and after puberty. For us, we're not interested in puberty. So then they're going to say, when you were 3, you have to pay zakat. So they say the first time that you had to pay zakat, that you had zakatable amount after puberty, right? So that's not going to go to 3. We're going to go to 3, right? We're going to say, well, you had that money, it was there, so you have to pay back from the age of 3. But they're going to say from that time you reach puberty. So from the time you reach puberty was the first time you had to pay zakat, and you're going to go month by month. And so in the Hanafi school, you're more likely to have to pay zakat than the Shafi school, because the Shafi school, you might have lots of money, good income, right? But what happened was you bought 2 cars just then, right? You might have a good salary, a really good salary, right? And you spend lots of money, right? But you don't, it goes down beneath the minimum, so no zakat was due, right? You had bought food for the next 2 months. You had paid your rent for the next 6 months. So you had savings in that you paid your rent. You had savings in that you just bought a house. You had savings in that you just furnished your house. You bought your house. You paid the tax up front for the next 2 years on your house. You did this and this, but you didn't have cash, right? Because you don't have it because you just spent all these things, and you went down beneath $500, and those zakat is due, even though you're a wealthy person, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, is that.
Okay, great. Now we go on to Okay, so now there's another thing which you say, oh, if I don't have cash, that means what if I'm in trade? Trade is something else. So you don't pay zakat on savings if it goes beneath 500. But what about trade goods? I buy and sell cars. Oh, that's different, Habibi. So I didn't have the cash, but you had trade goods. Ah, that's different. You bought a house in order to sell it. That's a trade good now. So in that now we're going to say you didn't go below. But that's something else when we come to trade goods. Go ahead. Who was asking the question? Mahmoud, is it?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I have regarding the third point, possess of complete ownership.
Yes.
Uh, I have seen some families here in India, a father will be earning, and his sons who are also married and separated in their own uh, small families. So the father pays the zakat on the net amount, entire amount, and the sons won't pay by themselves. They
Okay.
just spend it.
So
So,
once you become financially uh, uh, once you reach puberty, okay, you
yeah.
become two different people. So me paying for on behalf of my son, right, is like you
Okay.
paying for me. So you contact me every Ramadan and say, Sheikh, I want to pay your zakat for you. I'm like, sure, here's my zakat, pay this much. So when you asked me and I said yes, that was like me paying. Okay. So as long as
Uh,
there's knowledge and permission, it's fine. Right? So it's like this. The dad says, I don't want you to you I want you I don't want you to touch your cash right now. I will pay your zakat for you. Right?
mhm,
And maybe, for example, they don't have any other money to pay zakat on apart from the money that he has. So he gave, for example, he gave all of them savings, right? So he said, look,
mhm,
this savings yours, these are all yours, and it's theirs, and they've accessed it. So when you give, they have to give access to it. So then he said, give it back to me, okay? And I'm going to have it in this account, and I'm going to pay his account on it. Or they all have a share of a business, and he's running the business. He is the accountant, right? So he
mhm,
in his capacity as an accountant and as a wakil, as a representative for them, he gives as a zakat. That's fine. But I can't come up
mhm,
to you and say, by the way, you don't have to pay zakat this year. Why? I already paid all your zakat for you. That doesn't count. And similarly, if you are my son
mhm,
or you're my dad, say, oh, I paid zakat for you. That doesn't count.
mhm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is important for girls as well, right? Because we look at girls as financially dependent. But here's a girl, for example, she lives in India. She is 14, right? Could a 14-year-old girl work in India and live by herself in principle?
No.
Okay, 18. Could she live by herself and work in?
Depends.
It depends, okay? But let's say, for
Yeah.
example, America, okay? I'm in England. At 16, I can leave my house and get a job and work and live with my friends in a house somewhere. So I'll rent an apartment. Me and my th four friends, we're going to rent an apartment together, and I'm independent of you. So I'm a 16-year-old girl who happens to live with her parents, right? And so the way that she lives life is she's dependent on them. But in reality, she's not. She's a financially independent person. So they don't have to support her, but they are, and they can't pay zakat on her behalf, but they are without her knowledge and without her consent. Does that make sense? That's a problem. That's problematic. So she's now 22. She's in a fifth class, and she realizes, oh my God, my parents have been paying zakat for me. I have my own savings for the last this amount of time. That's my money, not theirs. And I was supposed to be paying zakat. I didn't even know anything about zakat. So now she says, oh my God, so what is that now? That is, she didn't pay it because she didn't give them permission. She didn't even know about it. So she had a financial obligation to the poor that was a financial and religious obligation, right? Notice it's both. So it doesn't count without a niyyah, right? If, for example, you had a financial obligation to me, okay? You owed me money and somebody took it from you and gave it to me. You've paid me off. It's okay, right? Because you paid me. But this is a financial and religious one, and you have to have niyyah. You have to have intention. I didn't even know about it. And my parents were just taking it from my money and giving it away. That doesn't count. So my parents are considered thieves. In reality, they didn't mean to be thieves. They're considered thieves because they just given my money away for nothing. And I haven't paid zakat, right? And this is important to understand. Why? Because it helps us form in our minds the picture that it's just my baby. These are my babies, right? They're not your babies. You know, I tell my boys, for example, you know, Habiba, my daughter, she's still 7, still babyland, okay? But my boys are like 9 and 10, you know? Not, you know. So we have to inculcate we have to bring in our kids the idea that if you're 10, the only reason you're not responsible is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has lifted the pen from you. You are a man, right? You are a man. You're not a kid. You're not a baby, right? 8, 9, 10, khalas, you're a man now. You're in training zone, but you are independent, right? You are independent. And there's going to be a time where the pen will be start writing. When you reach puberty, the pen's going to start writing. But otherwise, you know what you're doing. You're a 10-year-old boy. You want something, go and get it, right? You have to take responsibility. So the Sharia tells us that, right? When the Prophet ﷺ picked up picked up the hand of Fatima radiallahu anha, right, and said, if Fatima bint Muhammad stole, I cut her hand off. He wouldn't say, I take responsibility for it. No, she is a morally independent woman. She's a little girl. She reached puberty. She's responsible, right? So it's really important. Puberty, the concept of being morally independent from your parents and being responsible, that it comes in at the age of like 7, 8, 9. It does not come in at 10, right? 7, you're still in la la land. 8, borderline. 9, you're not in la la land anymore. 10, 11. Girls reaching puberty, 10 and 11. Boys, 11, 12, 13, 14, right? But the point is, like, you're responsible. So one of the nice things we have in Eastern families is that family support, but that family camaraderie in this situation, but that can't cross its line where the person doesn't know that they're responsible. So that as that example, oh, I just treated my girl as if she's not responsible. She's responsible, and then she ended up not paying zakat, which is a problem. So until she reaches puberty, the dad is responsible for paying that money out. When she reaches puberty, like, sweetheart, this is your money that you have. I'm giving this money to the poor. Do you understand? She's like, yeah, okay, thank you, daddy. Right? He worked it out for her, he arranged it for her, but she needs to be like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm responsible. Right? I might be 8 years old or 9 years old. I might be 9 years old and right? And still at, school or whatever, but that's not how Allah looks at you. Allah looks at you as a independent financial and moral individual, and you have to take responsibility for that. So therefore, you're going to say, yes, daddy, I give you permission to take my money and give it to the poor, right? So it's really important to understand this, like this, that there's no in Islam, there's no such thing as teenager. It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Judgment Day, there's no such thing as teenager. It's a cruel and harmful. It's harmful in the dunya, and it's very harmful in the akhirah. Right? It's like telling somebody that they're starting a race and they weren't even running yet. You told them you don't have to run yet for the first, after they pull the gun, you don't have to run yet. You just wait for 5 seconds and then start running. That's cruel. He's lost the race now. Right? He's lost the race. Or he's done lots of haram things, lots of this, because in his mind, I'm not responsible. I'm just a girl. I'm just a kid. I'm just a school kid. What's wrong with me? Right? You're not. You are, in Allah's eyes, you're responsible. You have to do these things. So forgive my tangent, but it's an important tangent there, inshallah. Okay, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.